Welcome to MetalVice in 666. I'm your host, Brian, joined by our host,
Karen.
And today I wanted to talk about what happens to live music with the rising costs of tours. I've seen a lot of articles lately about bands saying it costs too much to tour. You can't make money touring, especially younger bands. Even for some established bands, it's just too expensive sometimes. So I just wanted to have a little brief conversation about what happens to live music if it just gets too much.
Hypotheticals.
Yeah, exactly. Hypotheticals. So let's start the timer and start the conversation. So, like I said, I've seen a lot of articles lately and read some of them and looked into it a little bit. And, they're saying some of it's related to 2020, that might be the reason why some of the prices are going up. Inflation, all of that, just the time we're in. But tour buses are costing a lot. Pyro is costing a lot. Traveling stuff around, like moving your equipment back and forth, is just a lot of money to do this lately. And you can't make money if you're spending all your money to travel it around and outside of raising ticket prices, which then that's a whole nother conversation of, well, what happens then? Can fans go to as many concerts then? That kind of thing. So one thing I thought about was, okay, if it does get too much, you probably start cutting things. Pyro might be one of them that you just, all right, we're not going to do pyro anymore. Do you need pyro to have a good live show?
Oh, we see a lot of live shows without pyro here in Chicago.
But what if you saw Rammstein without pyro?
Oh, yeah, that would be weird.
So I think, yes, you can do some shows without pyro. Lamb of God, I think, is a good example of Walk With Me in Hell, right? Where it's Walk With Me in Hell, and then boom, pyro goes like a wall of flame.
But when we see them in Chicago, it's that, what are those called?
It's the smoke bomb things.
Smoke machine things.
Yeah.
It's like the ice. Yeah.
Shooting that up. So it's like you can come up with different effects. But what if you can't do that and that's too expensive?
Yeah.
All right, lighting. All you need is some lighting to put on some effects, right? You can do a lot with lighting. I don't know.
Oh, do you want me to comment?
If you want to, yeah, just pop in whenever.
I did. No, I agree. If it gets too much for bands to tour, things are going to have to be cut. And I mean, most of the time it's going to be like those simple things, like pyro's not going to be there, because then not only are you not paying for the pyro, you're not paying somebody to run the pyro, and I'm sure there's inspections and all that stuff you have to pay for at the venue. I'm just guessing. We don't know, but I'm guessing there's all those things. So then if you cut all those, then that's saving you money.
Yeah.
I think the big one that I've seen a lot is tour buses or rentals of vehicles is getting too much. Not even a tour bus, but one band was at Belvedere when the tornado came through, and they rented an RV, and then that got damaged during the tornado, and then that was going to cost them $60,000 because the insurance was being all wacky weird. And it's bands don't have $60,000 to just,
not every band, right?
No, yeah. I mean, most bands probably don't. Unless you're Metallica or something. But I mean, even that, they were scrambling then to try to figure out how to get a vehicle to go to the next city to do the next show, plus deal with what they had just done. So I mean, that's just one little example. But I mean, if it's going to be $60,000 to rent a RV, that's a lot of money. I mean, it's not like renting a car where you pay $30 a day or $40. I mean, depending on what kind of car you have. I mean, these are very expensive vehicles.
And a lot of it is also lugging your equipment around.
Yep.
So a part of me is I understand some bands like the Orange amps or Marshall amps or Fender amps. Do you honestly need the average listener? I don't think can tell the difference between those two amps.
Yeah.
So especially in a live setting, maybe in the studio, but a live setting, the average person I don't think can.
Do they even use those?
Cares.
Or do they use the venue amps?
Well, it's your amp, and I think you plug it through.
Oh, okay. So I just wondered because
even speaker.
I mean, I was Thrash the Titans posted their setup for their last show, and somebody commented they had 3 amps, and they even said one's for show.
Oh.
So I mean, do they even use them, or are they just as their stage setup? And that's the other thing that I think I've seen even more recently is not as elaborate stage setups. I'm thinking of when we saw Trivium at the Radius. All the bands before Trivium went on had no stage setup basically, and then even when Trivium came on, they had very, very little stage setup, and it's like, I'm sure that was a cost thing.
Yeah.
Or, something like that.
Could be. But I mean, so if it becomes so much where you can't move your shit around, maybe it's, and by shit I mean gear. Maybe it's, I'm not going to bring my drum kit. I'm going to use your drum kit. And we've seen some of that too, where they're like, we're going to use the same drum kit, but we're going to take out the heads, we're going to take out the cymbals and replace that.
Yeah.
So that could be another way to cut down costs that you might see coming down the road.
Right.
Live streaming, maybe? Like, we've seen a lot of live streaming events and
I honestly
whatnot.
thought after 2020, when bands were doing live streaming, that would become more of a thing. I mean, like, I know Metallica's doing their live streaming of their Dallas show, right? Is it Dallas?
It's in the theater, so not quite live streaming, but yeah.
Well,
but
it's still it's a live stream. It's a live stream, just not at your home couch, but still, like, it's a live stream.
Yeah.
But it's like nationwide in the theaters. But I mean, I figured that there'd be a lot more of that, where I don't think there really is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised too that there's not as much live streaming for sure. And I was also thinking, like, all right, on top of live streaming, what happens if bands just become regional bands or residency type things where we're only going to play in California or up and down the West Coast or up and down the East Coast, because it's cheaper to go up and down like 2 or 3 states than it is to travel across the country with all of our shit back and forth.
Yeah.
Or we're always going to play like a residency type thing of we're always going to play Madison Square Garden, thinking of like Billy Joel, right? Or
he doesn't have that anymore.
He doesn't have it anymore, but he used to do it.
Yeah. Vegas
is very common with this, where musical acts will show up and do a residency for 3 or 4 years and only play this one venue.
Yeah. I could definitely see a regional thing where they don't necessarily go to, especially, American bands maybe not going to Europe, or Europe bands not coming to America, or something like that. Like, I could see that happening as well, just because those costs could be getting higher and higher. And that would be devastating to not see some of the bands that we love. And I'm sure Europe's the same way, where they love bands from
And that was one of the things, like, I think Godsmack had to cancel their South American tour because it was just so expensive, like tour buses and all of that.
Yeah. Well, South America's kind of special anyways, because there's not like the highway system that goes between the countries. So it's more like you're loading it up on a plane or a boat.
And then if that does happen, then it's because music becomes sort of a travel event. Like, I have to travel to San Francisco, because I don't think there's going to be many bands lining up to do Chicago shows.
No.
Especially with the winter.
Or that's all they're going to do is like go to the major cities, and then and then the cities in between the major cities aren't going to get anything.
Exactly. So you have to travel to a major hub to see shows. So
it'll be interesting.
It's a little frightening. I love live music in the current state it is. I want to continue to see bands tour and do well while touring. But
I think it comes down to even like Ticketmaster giving more money of the tickets to the bands.
And I don't know how that works.
And venues stop taking merch cuts.
There's a lot to it for sure, yeah.
And giving beer cuts or bar cuts.
And ticket prices are going to go up. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough thing. I don't want to see music. I don't think live music will ever go away by any means. No. I just think how we consume it is going to be a little different. I don't think we're going to be able to see nearly as many shows as we currently do in 5 to 10 years, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Unfortunately, it's going to be, especially like you said, Europe and South America are going to get hosed really hard.
Yeah.
And us with European bands, Avatar might not be coming here every summer. So
that'd be devastating.
Anyway, go out, support live music. It's so fucking awesome. Who knows what's going to happen? It's the future. We could be completely off. So.
Yep. Bye.